and the password she changed at 3:04 a.m. At 3:04 a.m., my phone blinked awake on the nightstand, a small lighthouse in the dark. "Your password was changed," the notification said, calm as a doctor with bad news he's delivered before. It was for an account Leela and I shared, a subscription service packed with movies we never watched to the end because life interrupts good intentions. We set up the account on our second anniversary, a silly domestic ceremony where we agreed that if one of us changed a password at an ungodly hour, the other would at least mock them in the morning. Beside me, Leela slept on her stomach, hair spread like a project she'd abandoned until daylight. I watched the rise and fall of her back and waited for the rational explanation to arrive. Rational explanations arrive on business hours. At 3:06, there was a second ping. New device signed in. Location tagged. The Commons, Warehouse B. The Commons is a co-working labyrinth, a 10-minute walk from our apartment. All glass walls and good coffee, and people who believe interesting lives require keycards. Leela had told me she'd canceled her membership months ago. The place made her feel like an extra in other people's startups. I was the one who kept mine, a developer who likes to eavesdrop on ambition when my code stops being polite. I stared at the ceiling. The part of my brain trained to see patterns misbehaved. Someone was awake in a building where my wife no longer belonged, using an account we shared, entering a password she changed without telling me. In the morning, this would be either a story with a dumb twist or a story with an expensive ending. Between 3 and 4, it was just a story with a hallway. The morning came like a waiter with a tray of modest apologies. Leela padded into the kitchen in one of my t-shirts and said, "You were restless. Do I need to stage an intervention between you and your phone?" "You changed a password at 3, I said. She looked at the kettle looked at me. "I couldn't sleep," she said lightly. "I opened the app to see if the Noir you like is still there. It wanted the new security thing. I tapped through and—" "Warehouse B," I said, because I have unfortunate timing when I'm scared. She blinked slowly, the way a cat considers a lapse in manners. "They must root through something," she said. "Proxy, what's with the pop quiz?" I held up my hands. "It woke me. Consider this revenge by curiosity." She poured coffee like a person who trusted gravity to keep its promises. "Tonight I've got late hours," she said. 3 essays per student times 25. Don't wait up. Or do if you're masochistic. I teach machines to guess what people will do. Leela teaches people what other people meant when they were trying to be immortal. We used to believe that made us complimentary. My caution, her courage. Lately, it just meant we were both very good at telling stories. At lunch, I walked to the Commons with my laptop and an argument I wasn't ready to have. Warehouse B is the quieter wing, meant for paying members who want privacy without suspicion. The attendant at the desk, a guy with a new tattoo wrapped in saran wrap, looked up with the patient insolence of youth. "You need a day pass or a confessional?" he asked. "Day pass," I said, "and a light at the end of a tunnel." He slid the badge across. "We're out of tunnels," he said, "but we've got sparkling water." Inside, desks lined up like a coastline. People in expensive slouch sat with their headphones on, nodding to their own private negotiations. I took a corner table with a view of a conference room called The Engine. The Engine had just 2 people in it, a man in a navy jacket and a woman standing too close for strangers. The glass blurred details enough to be polite. The proximity did the rest. Leela appeared 10 minutes later. "There's a particular way your stomach goes cold when your certainty gets evicted. It's like stepping off a curb you were sure existed." She wore the black blazer she reserves for parent meetings and a lipstick that makes her mouth look assertive without threats. She paused before entering the engine, ran a hand through her hair to edit the moment, then went in. I should have stood up. I should have walked out or walked in. Instead, I did the worst thing a person can do. I watched. The navy jacket man, mid-40s, careful, handsome, the kind of posture that suggests he reads contracts for sport, set a tablet on the table and angled it toward her. She leaned in. He touched her wrist once, a precise landing you could call emphasis if you were trying to pardon yourself later. She looked at his hand, then at his face, then at the window. A sequence that is a sentence in any language. My badge vibrated. The desk attendant had triggered the "your session is expiring" nudge because that's what passes for urgency in a building like this. I sat frozen until the man stood. Leela stayed seated, fingers interlaced the way she holds thoughts she doesn't want to drop. He said something brief, then left with a look that didn't belong in a shared office. She stayed in the chair another 30 seconds. I counted. I texted an unknown number because I am not as original as I want to be. Mara, from earlier days when trouble had a different face, had texted me once with a warning for a friend. We'd never met. I found the old thread typed. Do you still translate feelings into strategy? Warehouse B, 2 p.m. I'm failing at both. Her reply came fast, like she'd been waiting for someone to give her something useful to do. 2 words, on my way. The man in the navy jacket appeared at the exit door below my window. He crossed the street like a person who thinks pavement will always rise to meet him. A few minutes later, Mara's reflection appeared in the glass, dark bob, red scarf, eyes like she collects accurate mistakes. She didn't come inside. She messaged instead, corner coffee, 10 minutes. Don't make me come get you. The coffee shop across from the Commons operates on the belief that foam is a form of therapy. I sat with my hands around a cup. Mara slid into the seat across from me and folded her scarf like it deserved respect. Tell me all the parts you rehearsed on the way over, she said. I told her about the notification and the password and Warehouse B and the engine and navy jacket's careful, infuriating hand. I told her about Leela's coffee voice and the way she rubs the bridge of her nose when she wants to edit the world and the way she didn't do it this morning. I surprised myself by not crying. I'm not that cinematic. Mara listened like she charges by the minute and over-delivers. When I finished, she said, you can choose spectacle or intimacy. Spectacle is satisfying for 15 minutes and devastating for 15 months. Intimacy is humiliating for an hour and survivable forever. What does intimacy look like? I asked. You ask for the truth in a room that doesn't require witnesses, she said. No announcing, no gotcha, no exit lines. You tell her what you saw. You tell her what you need. If she wants to keep both you and the rehearsal for someone else, you tell her you have one chair. What if she chooses the rehearsal? Then you only had one chair anyway, she said, and stirred her coffee like she was dissolving a law. Who is he? I asked. Julian, she said. He curates people, causes, rooms. He thinks the second pause makes him moral. He's not a villain, he's a very tidy appetite. If a person craves to be seen as an exhibit, he will give them wall text and a spotlight. If a person craves to be understood as a process, he gets bored. I can be a process, I said. It sounded defensive because it was. Good, she said. Then be one, take her home, not like a rescue, like an invitation. When I looked back out the window, Leela was gone. The engine's glass showed only the boring reflection of sun on street. I went home with a truth I didn't know how to hold, and a plan that terrified me because it didn't involve bravery other people could clap for. At 6, Leela came in late, holding the apartment door open with her foot while she fished keys from the black hole of her tote. She was still in the blazer, lipstick smudged at one corner in a way you could call fatigue if you loved her. I took the tote, set it down, and said, "We need to talk without staging." She didn't pretend not to understand. She put the blazer on the chair and sat, hands flat on the table. "Warehouse B," she said. "And the engine," I said, "and the man who curates." She closed her eyes. When she opened them, she was already choosing to be terrible and honest instead of terrible and coy. "I went there to end it," she said, "or to rehearse ending the rehearsal. I told him I wanted to keep my life. He said people who keep their life forget to live. He thinks he's a poet. He uses other people's hearts like footnotes." "Tell me when it started," I said. "It came out cleaner than I expected." "2 months ago," she said. "He asked me to consult on a fundraising letter for a program that helps kids write their first books. He is good at making you feel like your gift is a door to a better city. He said my sentences felt like they knew their purpose. He looked at me like purpose was a thing you could flirt with. I was tired. I was flattered. I felt new in a way our couch doesn't make me feel anymore. And then I hated myself for needing that sentence. "Did you?" I stopped. "You can tell me yes without adding soap." "We kissed twice," she said. "He wanted the portion of me that looks good in glass. He did not ask about the portion that grades papers until midnight and cries at dog commercials. He would have made a mistake with me and called it art." "How long since the second kiss?" I asked. "A week," she said. "And in between, I told him no more. I told him I wanted to walk home on sidewalks that know my weight. He said I was romanticizing boredom. Then I changed a password at 3 a.m. because I wanted to touch something I could break and fix in 2 minutes." I let that settle. Behind us, the fridge hummed encouragement. Outside somewhere, someone practiced scales badly, the sound of trying being louder than the sound of succeeding. "I'm angry," I said, "but not at the version of you who wanted to be looked at and get 10 months of oxygen in 10 minutes. I'm angry at the part of us that let our couch become a soft map to the same 4 places." She exhaled, a sound with edges. "I don't want to burn our furniture to feel sun on my skin," she said. "I want to move it around until the light hits different." "We can do that," I said, "but we need rules that aren't punishments." She tilted her head. "Say them." "1," I said, "no secret passwords. If it needs a lock, we share the key or we admit we're locking each other out. 2, if a person makes you feel like a museum piece, you tell me before the brochure goes to print. I will either build a gallery at home or walk with you out of any room you don't want to be in. 3, when we want novelty, we start here. We don't outsource wonder." "And 4," she asked. "We let the boring parts be noticed," I said. "You get credit for the ordinary. I want to be praised for showing up. We stop treating devotion like oxygen, necessary and invisible." She stood, stepped around the table, and framed my face with both hands like I was a photograph she'd decided to hang. "I want you," she said. "Not a curator, not a witness. The person who knows where I keep my shame and my spare socks." "We can start tonight," I said, and she nodded, relief and fear shaking hands. In the bedroom, we touched each other like a contract we wanted to read thoroughly before signing. The erotic part wasn't gymnastic. It was exact. The way her breath changed when I said her name into the hollow below her ear. The way she paused to look directly at me like she was checking that I was present enough to deserve the next inch. The way we laughed when my knee cracked, because vulnerability is sexier than symmetry. We asked each other small, precise questions. Here. More. Yes, and we answered without bravado. Heat arrived like a tide that trusted us to swim. We didn't splash, we didn't show off, we didn't drown. When we came apart together, it felt less like victory and more like consent signed in longhand. After the air smelled like skin and old wood and two people deciding, Leela lay with her head on my chest and drew a circle on my sternum with her finger like she was practicing a new alphabet. "I told him this afternoon I was done," she said softly. "He tried to make the ending an opening night. I said no. He won't send flowers because he doesn't do clichés he didn't invent." I kissed the top of her head. "If he writes you a letter, let me recycle it." "I will," she said, and yawned with the unsexy grace of someone who is allowed to be human. We made rituals the next week, not to perform health but to make it. 1. We play a song to the end before we start anything important. 2. Sunday night she reads me one paragraph from something she loves. Monday morning I show her one piece of code I'm proud of even if she can't translate it. 3. Once a month we work from the commons but sit at the same table, choose a room together, refuse to let glass walls make us actors. A month later, I saw Julian across the lobby, looking like a man who survived on silent admiration. He nodded at me, the nod of someone who has decided to treat losing like a style. I nodded back, the nod of someone who decided he liked his furniture exactly where he'd moved it. At 3:04 a.m. my phone sometimes still lights up. The building's boiler hiccups. A raccoon triggers the alley cam. Once there was another password alert, but it was me, resetting an account we should have closed and didn't. I woke Leela up just to tell her, to be ridiculous on purpose. She threw a pillow at me and laughed, the three-stage laugh that starts at her mouth and ends in her shoulders. We fell back asleep with her foot hooked behind my calf, a simple knot you can't tie with anyone who doesn't know how you sleep. We are not pure, we are precise. We are answerable and occasionally glorious and always a work in progress that refuses to be exhibited without consent. The couch is still our couch. Sometimes we move it 2 inches and the whole room changes. Sometimes we move ourselves. When the morning light shows up like a promise it's learned to keep, she rolls toward me and says, "Password." And I say, "Us." And for once the app agrees.